Good evening, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful day indoors or maybe even a little bit outdoors. My name is Saman Gerard and welcome to Readings in Isolation. I'll be your host this evening and I will continue where Joanna left off, which was, let me put this way. At the tale of the ensorcelled prince. For those of you who didn't tune in the last time, it's about a prince who's telling his story to a king, how he married his cousin and they were madly in love, but she would poison him at night by putting poison in his wine. And he overheard this actually from the slaves. So he stood, like he was up one night seeing what she's up to, and now he's telling his story. So I will continue over here. We are at the end of the 7th night of Shahrazad, telling the stories. Let's get comfortable again. Off we go. And lo, my fair cousin had gone in to a hideous African slave. He was to boot a leper and a paralytic, lying upon a strew of sugar-cane trash and wrapped in an old blanket and the foulest rags and tatters. She kissed the earth before him, and he raised his head so as to see her and said, "Woe to thee! What call hadst thou to stay away all this time? Here have been with me sundry of the black brethren who drank their wine, and each had his young lady. And I was not content to drink because of thine absence." Then she, "O my lord, my heart's love and coolth of my eyes, knowest thou not that I am..." This is my cat. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Apologies, I found the toy. I'm going to hide this here. All right. Let me start from over here. "O my lord, my heart's love and coolth of my eyes, knowest thou not that I am married to my cousin, whose very look I loathe and hate myself when in his company? And did not I fear for thy sake, I would not let a single sun arise before making his city a ruined heap, wherein ravens should croak and owls hoot, and jackal and wolf harbour and loot. Nay, I had removed its very stones to the backside of Mount Kaf." Rejoined the slave, "Thou liest, damn thee! Now I swear an oath by the valour and honour of blackamoor man, and deem not our manliness to be the poor manliness of white man. From today forth, I thou stay away till this hour. I will not keep company with thee, nor will I glue my body with thy body, and strum and belly bump. Dost play fast and lose with us, thou cracked pot, that we may satisfy thy dirty lusts? Stinker, bitch, vilest of the vile whites." When I heard his words, and saw with my own eyes what passed between these two wretches, the world waxed dark before my face, and my soul knew not in what place it was. But my wife humbly stood up, weeping before and wheeling the slave, and saying, "O my beloved, and very fruit of my heart, there is none left to cheer me but thy dear self. And if thou cast me off, who shall take me in, O my beloved, O light of my eyes?" And she ceased not weeping and abasing herself to him until he deigned be reconciled with her. Then was she right glad, and stood up and doffed her clothes, even to her petticoat trousers, and said, O my master, what hast thou here for thy handmaiden to eat? Uncover the basin, he grumbled, and thou shalt find at the bottom the broiled bones of some rats we dined on. Pick at them, and then go to that slop pot, where thou shalt find some leavings of beer, which thou mayest drink. So she ate and drank, and washed her hands, and went and lay down by the side of the slave, upon the cane trash, and stripping herself stark naked, she crept in with him, under his foul coverlet and his rages and tatters. When I saw my wife, my cousin, the daughter of my uncle, do this deed, I clean lost my wits, and climbing down from the roof, I entered and took the sword which she had with her, and drew it, determined to cut down the tray. I first struck at the slave's neck, and thought that the death decree had fallen on him. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now when it was the 8th night, she continued, It has reached me, O auspicious king, that the young and sorceful prince said to the king, When I smote the slave, with intent to strike off his head, I thought that I had slain him, for he groaned a loud hissing groan. But I had cut only the skin and flesh of the gullet and the 2 arteries. It awoke the daughter of my uncle. So I sheathed the sword and fared forth for the city, and entering the palace, lay upon my bed and slept till morning, when my wife aroused me. And I saw that she had cut off her hair and had donned mourning garments. She said, O son of my uncle, blame me not for what I do. It has just reached me that my mother is dead, and my father has been killed in holy war, and of my brothers, one has lost his life by a snake sting, and the other by falling down some precipice. And I can and should do naught save weep and lament. When I heard her words, I refrained from all reproach and said only, Do as thou list. I certainly will not thwart thee. She continued sorrowing, weeping and wailing 1 whole year, from the beginning of its circle to the end. And when it was finished, she said to me, I wish to build me in thy palace a tomb with a cupola, which I will set apart for my mourning, and will name the House of Lamentations. Said I again, Do as thou list. Then she builded for herself a cenotaph, wherein to mourn, and set on its centre a dome, under which showed a tomb like Santon's sepulchre. Thither she carried the slave and lodged him, but he was exceeding weak by reason of his wound, and unable to do her love service. He could only drink wine, and from the day of his hurt he spake not a word, yet he lived on. Because his appointed hour was not come. Every day, morning and evening, my wife went to him, and wept and wailed over him, and gave him wine and strong soups, and left not off doing after this manner a 2nd year. And I bore with her patiently, and paid no heed to her. One day, however, I went in to her unawares, and I found her weeping and beating her face and crying. Why art thou absent from my sight, O my heart's delight? Speak to me, O my life. Talk with me, O my love. Then she recited these verses. For your love my patience fails, and albeit you forget, I may not, nor to other love my heart can make reply. Bear my body, bear my soul, wheresoever you may fare, and where you pitch the camp, let my body buried lie. Cry my name above my grave, and an answer shall return, the moaning of my bones, responsive to your cry. Then she recited, weeping bitterly the while, the day of my delight is the day when draw you near, and the day of mine affright is the day you turn away. Though I tremble through the night in my bitter dread of death, when I hold you in my arms, I am free from all affray. Once more she began reciting, though a morn I may awake, with all happiness in hand, though the world all be mine, and like Kisra kings I reign. To me they had the worth of the winglets of the knot, when I fail to see thy form, when I look for thee in vain. When she had ended for a time her words and her weeping, I said to her, O my cousin, let this thy mourning suffice, for in pouring forth tears there is little profit. Thwart me not, answered she. In aught I do, or I will lay violent hands on myself. So I held my peace, and left her to go her own way, and she ceased not to cry, and keen and indulge her affliction for yet another year. At the end of the 3rd year, I waxed weary of this longsome mourning, and one day I happened to enter the cenotaph, when vexed and angry with some matter which had thwarted me, and suddenly I heard her say, O my lord, I never hear thee vouchsafe a single word to me. Why dost thou not answer me, O my master? And she began reciting, O thou tomb, be his beauty set in shade? Hast thou darkened that countenance all sheeny as the noon? O thou tomb, neither earth nor yet heaven are to me, then how cometh it in thee are conjoined my sun and moon? When I heard such verses as these, rage was heaped upon me. I cried out, well away, how long is this sorrow to last? When she heard my words, she sprang to her feet, crying, Fie upon thee, thou cur! All this is of thy doings. Thou hast wounded my heart's darling, and thereby worked me sore woe, and thou hast wasted his youth, so that these 3 years he has lain abed more dead than alive. In my wrath I cried, O thou foulest of harlots and filthiest of whores, ever futtered by African slaves, who are hired to have at thee. Yes, indeed, it was I who did this good deed. And snatching up my sword, I drew it and made at her to cut her down. But she laughed at my words. To heal, hunt that thou art. Alas for the past, which shall no more come to pass, nor shall any one avail the dead to raise. Allah has indeed now given into my hand him who did to me this thing, a deed that has burned my heart with a fire which died not, and a flame which might not be quenched. Then she stood up, and pronouncing some words to me unintelligible, she said, By virtue of my necromancy, become thou half stone and half man. Whereupon I became what thou seest, unable to rise or to sit, and neither dead nor alive. Moreover, she bewitched the city with all its streets and garth, and she turned by her gramarye the 4 islands into 4 mountains around the town, whereof thou questionest me. And the citizens, who were of 4 different faiths, Muslim, Nazarene, Jew, and Magian, She transformed by her enchantments into fishes. The Muslims are the white, the Magians red, the Christians blue, and the Jews yellow. And every day she tortured me with 100 stripes, each of which draweth floods of blood and cutteth the skin of my shoulders to strips. And lastly, she clothed my upper half with a hair cloth, and then throweth over them these robes. Hereupon, the young man again shed tears and began reciting. In patience, O my God, I endure my lot and fate. I will bear at will of thee whatsoever be my stay. They oppress me, they torture me, they make my life a woe. Yet perhaps heaven's happiness shall compensate my stray. Yea, straitened is my life by the bane and hate of foes, but Mustafa and Murtaza shall ope me heaven's gate. After this, the Sultan turned towards the young prince and said, O youth, thou hast removed one grief only to add another grief. But now, O my friend, where is she? And where is the mausoleum wherein lieth the wounded slave? The slave lieth under yon dome, said the young man, and she sitteth in the chamber fronting yonder door. And every day at sunrise she cometh forth, and first whippeth me with 100 strokes of the leathern scourge, and I weep and shriek. But there is no power of motion in my lower limbs to keep her off me. After ending her tormenting me, she visiteth the slave, bringing him wine and boiled meats. And tomorrow, at an early hour, she will be here. Said the king, By Allah, O youth, I will assuredly do thee a good deed, which the world shall not willingly let die, and an act of daring do, which shall be chronicled long after I am dead and gone by. Then the king sat him by the side of the young prince and talked till nightfall, when he lay down and slept. But as soon as the false dawn showed, he arose and doffing his outer garments, bared his blade, and hastened to the place wherein lay the slave. Then was he ware and lighted candles and lamps, and the perfume of incenses. And directed by these, he made for the slave, and struck him, one stroke, killing him on the spot. After which, he lifted him on his back, and threw him into a well that was in the palace. Presently he returned, and donning the slave's gear, lay down at length within the mausoleum, with the dawn sword laid close to and along his side. After an hour or so, the accursed witch came, and first, going to her husband, she stripped off his clothes, and taking a whip, flogged him cruelly while he cried out, Enough for me the case I am in. Take pity on me, O my cousin. But she replied, Didst thou take pity on me, and spare the life of my true love, on whom I dwatted? Then she drew the cloth over his raw and bleeding skin, and threw the robe upon all, and went down to the slave with a goblet of wine and a bowl of meat broth in her hands. She entered under the dome, weeping and wailing, well away, and crying, O my lord, speak a word to me. O my master, I talk a while with me, and began to recite these couplets. How long this harshness, this unlove shall bide? Suffice thee not, tear floods, thou hast espied? Thou dost prolong our parting purposely, and if wouldst please my foe, thou'rt satisfied. Then she wept again and said, "O my lord, speak to me, talk with me." The king lowered his voice and, twisting his tongue, spoke after the fashion of the blackamoors and said, "Lack, lack, there be no majesty, and there be no might save in Allah, the glorious, the great." Now when she heard these words, she shouted for joy and fell to the ground, fainting. And when her senses returned, she asked, "O my lord, can it be true that thou hast power of speech?" And the king, making his voice small and faint, answered, "O my cuss, dost thou deserve that I talk to thee and speak with thee?" "Why and wherefore?" rejoined she. And he replied, "The why is that all the livelong day thou tormentest thy hubby, and he keeps calling on heaven for aid until sleep is strange to me, even from evening till morning. And he prays and dance, cussing us too, me and thee, causing me disquiet and much bother. Were this not so, I should long ago have got my health. And it is this which prevents my answering thee." She said, "With thy leave, I will release him from what spell is on him." And said the king, "Release him, and let's have some rest." She cried, "To hear is to obey." And going from the cenotaph to the palace, she took a metal bowl and filled it with water, and spake over it certain words which made the contents bubble and boil, as a cauldron over the fire. With this she sprinkled her husband, saying, "By virtue of the dread words I have spoken, if thou becamest thus by my spell, come forth out of that form into thine own former form." And lo and behold, the young man shook and trembled. Then he rose to his feet, and rejoicing at his deliverance, cried aloud, "I testify that there is no God but thee, God, and in very truth Muhammad is his apostle, whom Allah bless and keep." Then she said to him, "Go forth and return not, for if thou do, I will surely slay thee," screaming these words in his face. So he went from between her hands, and she returned to the dome, and going down to the sepulchre, she said, "O my lord, come forth to me, that I may look upon thee and thy goodliness." The king replied in faint, low words, "What thing hast thou done? Thou hast rid me of the branch, but not of the root." She asked, "O my darling, what is the root?" And he answered, "Fie on thee, O my cuss! The people of this city and of the 4 islands every night lift their heads from the tank in which thou hast turned them to fishes. And they cry to heaven and call down its anger on me and thee. And this is the reason why my body is balked from hell. Go at once and set them free. Then come to me and take my hand, and raise me up, for a little strength is already back in me." When she heard the king's words, and she still supposed him to be the slave, she cried joyously, "O my master, on my head and on my eyes be thy command, Bismillah." So she sprang to her feet, and full of joy and gladness, ran down to the tarn and took a little of its water in the palm of her hand. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of day and ceased to say her permitted say. This is where we're going to close a very turbulent chapter. I'm sorry for the noises in the background. Most of you know that I do have a cat named Button, and Button is on a diet and she's not happy. So I will go and feed her again. I hope you had a wonderful evening, and I hope you're going to tune in tomorrow to listen to Joanna reading. I hope you're using these times to go inwards instead of outwards, and wish you a lovely, lovely, lovely night. Sleep tight.